So you've been on a buying spree as of late, $600 million on these 5 companies. I think you spent some in Europe and elsewhere, but is acquisition still the key for you?
Well, actually, Susan, the acquisition strategy has always been one part of Li Fung's strategy.
Yeah.
Besides strong organic growth, we're also looking at acquisitions to supplement that. And it's a matter of, first of all, strategic needs. We need certain companies to what we call filling in the mosaic in terms of our own strategy, but also because of opportunity. In fact, we've been buying companies and building up our business in the last 3 years throughout the recession.
Okay.
And this is just a continuation.
And now you bought up TV Mania, which is a European supplier of branded products, including Hello Kitty, of course. Yeah, those in Asia love Hello Kitty, Mickey Mouse and Batman. What about Europe right now? I wanted to talk to you about the headwinds in Greece, possibly a defaulting and a debt crisis. What does that mean for your business, Li Fung, if that happens?
Well, the headwinds have always been there. In fact, it was very bad during the Great Recession, as it's now called. The last 3 years, America hasn't been great, but it's now recovering, albeit slowly. Europe still has to have some debt crises and other fiscal problems and challenges it's going to have. But having said that, I think these markets are still the biggest in the world, pending the rise of China and the Asian markets. And so, we're heavily involved in those markets, as well as opening a new front in Asia. Yeah.
What about the U.S.? You mentioned that when we heard from Ben Bernanke, of course, being the big story on the markets, and he says he's downgraded his forecast for the U.S. Not surprising, but he says basically unemployment is going to be painfully slow to come down. What does that mean for the likes of Li Fung, which distributes to Walmart? Consumers not coming back to the stores.
Well, first there's the macro situation. The macro situation is true that the American recovery is not as robust as people originally forecast. Having said that, our business, of course, depends on where our customers want to source their goods from.
Yeah.
And right now, of course, it's still in our parts of the world. In fact, you'll be surprised, with some of our customers, our business has actually increased as they want to buy more direct through us, as they want to do more private label and so on, to increase their margins. One of the ways they're combating this slowdown is actually to make sure that the goods they buy, offers the best margins and the best value to customers.
Okay, we'll talk about margins in a bit, but I want to come back to this Walmart deal because Bruce Rockwitz, your new CEO, projected $2 billion sales this year from the division that really sources for Walmart. Is that still on track, considering the weakness in the U.S. economy
Well,
itself?
you think about it again, you look at the weakness of the economy as a whole, then you're right, but then you've got to look at how companies like Walmart, which is the world's largest retailer, how they deal with it. And obviously, they have everyday low price, and I think they actually might be gaining in a situation like this.
So could we see those sales, that number even go up higher than $2 billion?
Sure, well, potentially, Walmart is the world's largest retailer. Our potential business with them is huge.
Yeah.
We're only scratching the surface, and we started the relationship about a year ago. And so it's off a standing start. We're very pleased with the results already.
All right, well, let's talk about margins. You talked about producing and sourcing from the Asia Pacific. I think Bruce also mentioned that I think costs might be going up 6 to 7% a year.
That's primarily because of China, what's happening in China. There's been a sea change in what's happening with China. I would say that 2010 last year, 2009, 2010, signaled really a change in China's direction.
Yeah.
For 30 years, from 1979, when Deng Xiaoping first opened up China. Those 30 years.
I like this, William.
Well, 79 to 2009, exactly 30 years. These 30 years, China really conquered the world in terms of consumer goods production. And they became the factory for the world.
Right.
I think 2009 and 2010, you really see a very significant change in direction in China, where they're saying that they're going to let domestic consumption now be the second engine for growth, and not just exports.
Well, isn't Li Fung founded in the Qing dynasty? All the way back, long
1906, that's right.
Or they were basically dealing with the Qing dynasty memorabilia, China, etc. Let me talk to you about the change in China itself, because you do source a lot, you produce a lot from Chinese factories. You have
about 50%.
Yeah, about 50%. You have wages going up right now. You have people, migrant workers, rioting on the streets because they want higher pay. Do you think in the future that we'll continue to see 50% of your goods produced in China?
Well, I think, first of all, China's capacity is so huge, it's hard to replace overnight. But on the other hand, having said that, the consumer goods we're dealing with, the factories have low barriers to entry. So other countries like Vietnam, Bangladesh, India, Indonesia, they can catch up and quite quickly. So we're really looking at a very fluid situation right now. There is some movement away from China, but don't forget, China is a very big country.
It
may
is.
be movement away from the Pearl River Delta, the Yangtze River Delta, but there are other places in the interior of China, the west of China.
All right, let's talk about also sales here in Asia. Not only do you source, but you're starting to sell, right?
Exactly.
So Li Fung Asia, targeting $1 billion in sales this year. Maybe surpassing that mark. Isn't that a little... You're being conservative, basically, aren't you?
Well, it's hard to say because, don't forget again, what Li Fung used to be is a company that sources from the developing countries of the world and sell to the three big developed markets, the United States, Western Europe, and Japan. What we see happening now going forward in the future is the emergence of Asia, especially China, as a consumer market. So what we did in this coming 3-year plan is actually to plan for a situation where Li Fung will now source globally as well as sell market globally.
Okay.
And Asia is a very important part of that. And of that, within Asia, of course, China is the most important.